From one neurospicy person to another, I enjoy the energy. It seems like he already beat me to what I wanted to do, which was to encourage you guys to feel like this is a little bit like Pentecostal church. So if you have a comment, or you want to throw an amen, or you want to laugh out loud, or you want to say ha ha ha, or whatever, I have ADHD, so I get bored. If you guys are all just staring at me, this isn't going to be that much fun. So I need a little feedback. If you're on your laptop, just once in a while, peek up from it so that I can see your pretty little eyes. AV team, I might just pop a little bit over. If that's not okay, just let me know. Can I walk the stage, or is that, yeah? Okay, great. So with that being said, hi, my name's Thania Guardino. I'm going to chat with you today about how to explain LERs to your grandma. So first off, raise your hand if this is the first time that you're at this summit. All right, how exciting, welcome. So now raise your hand if the first time that someone explained LERs to you, you went, huh? Okay, great. So you're not alone, right? Because the truth is that this world is packed with really great intentions, but it's also full of confusing language, insider jargon, and explanations that leave most normal humans scratching their heads, right? So if you have ever nodded along while secretly Googling stuff underneath the table, same girl, same. Does this work? No, that's a pointer. Hey, there we go. So my background is that I didn't go to an Ivy League school. I don't have a PhD. My background is in marketing, and I came from ed tech, startup world, and I was used to explaining complex ideas into simple words that other people could understand. But when I found myself in rooms like this, I thought I was the dummy. But it turns out that I was not the dummy. It was just that the concepts being explained to me were not beyond me, but because of the way that they were being communicated, it was assumed that I was already fluent in a language that I had never learned. So I dug in, I asked a lot of questions, and I found out that if you feel like a dummy, it's not you, it's just that we've been explaining things badly. So my apologies, welcome if it's your first time. We're gonna hopefully fix this problem. So it's our third day, and some of this may seem redundant because it's been said and I identified a lot already, which is great. I've heard a lot of speakers. We had the day one, a great metaphors presentation, and I was like, yes, we're on the right track. And so many of your guys' sessions have already addressed this issue, so I don't want this to seem redundant or repetitive, but I think it is important to acknowledge that this is a problem, right? We have a jargon issue, we have not enough clarity, and we use a lot of insider language. So we have to take the complexity out of it, right? But I don't want you to worry. This isn't going to be a rant. This is a mission. Part of why I started Skills Scoop, it's a newsletter for making LERs digestible for the average person. And if you haven't already, we're in the corner. Go take a picture with the rubber ducky. This is for all of you to just have a fun background to take a photo with and post it on LinkedIn. But basically, we started that so that everybody could have skills be understandable and digestible. Oops. So if we believe that LERs can change lives, we owe it to the people to explain them in a way that invites them in, not shuts them out. Okay, so with my marketing background, I want to share a kiss with you. But don't worry, it's not that kind of kiss. We don't need to get HR involved. In Marketing 101, we have something called KISS, and it basically just means keep it simple, stupid. So I want you to remember that as you are making campaigns and you're doing things and you're working on communications. I want you to think about this. Now, what inspired this talk was we wrote an article for Skills Scoop called How to Explain LERs to Your Grandma. And in that, I explained that I envision, whenever I do something and I'm explaining something, I envision my Thanksgiving table. And I think, oh, if I have my grandma on this side and my 5-year-old niece on that side, and I'm in the middle, and they're like, so what are you working on? I'm like, how am I going to explain this, right? So every time that you are explaining or communicating something, can these two people understand it? And if they can't, well, then maybe it's not simplified enough. Now, when it comes to the 5-year-old, you don't need to give every detail, right? But they need to know that the why that matters is actually digested and understood. And then for your grandma, can she understand it without her eyes glazing over? So how do we actually do that? Let me scoot back a little bit here. So look to your left, look to your right. The person sitting next to you is not your audience, right? The people in this room are already fluent in LERs, and we're not building for all the brilliant people in this room. You guys already get it. We're building for the end user, the real people in the real world. You're looking at the Thanias who are doing a career change from one industry to another. You're looking at the plumber whose credentials are still living on a piece of paper, right? He doesn't know what a digital wallet is and how his creds can be put on somewhere. You're thinking about the student who's looking for a job and they're not thinking about the credentials and the micro stuff or the transcripts. They're thinking about, how am I going to get my next big girl job, right? You're thinking about the veteran who spent all their time in the military and they're trying to figure out how to translate their military experience into civilian language, right? You're thinking about the mom who's working, maybe she's suffering from postpartum depression and she's also a caregiver to her parents, right? They're real people, and today, Kelsey talked about that, right? The human person behind it. It's not the people in this room, and we have to change the language and the way that we explain things. So how do we do that? All right, Apple Pay. I love my Apple Pay. I use my Apple Pay everywhere I go. Now, the brilliant people at Apple Pay were not thinking about how they were going to explain to Thania that there's SSL and encryption and all this stuff. I just take my Apple Pay and I hit tap, tap, and I go, woohoo, and I love it, right? But that doesn't mean that the technology and the infrastructure and the interoperability and all the fancy things that I am not qualified to explain to you about don't matter. It just means that when Apple was advertising Apple Pay to me, they were leading with the things that I care about. So how do we do that in this room? Well, stop selling the infrastructure, stop selling the interoperability, stop selling the data architecture. Start instead sharing about the things that they care about, right? If you lead with the infrastructure, you're going to lose them. But if you meet people where they are, they're going to pay attention. So, instead of telling you all the things that are in this beautiful article, I made you guys a cheat sheet. So you can either go to skillscoop.com/grandma and download it, or you can scan the QR code and do that. Okay, I'm running so behind. Sorry, guys. So I'm going to fly by this and talk fast. The 3 rules for explaining LERs. 1, speak English. 2, run the grandma test. 3, lead with benefits and answer, what does this do for me? Number 1 thing I do is I envision the person that I am trying to reach, and I close my eyes for 5 seconds, and I go, okay, who is this person? What era did they grow up in? What technology did they grow up with or not with? What feels intimidating to them? What do they care about? And I do all of that before I think about the communications or the words or whatever. I'm thinking about the person and what they care about. Not what I care about, not what my client cares about, not what the organization cares about. What does my target audience care about? Then I translate it. I find the equivalent thing, I find an analogy, and then I bridge that gap. But you want to respect your audience, you don't want to dumb it down, and you want to find a way to make it relatable. The last thing I do is I lead with the benefits, right? Why would they care about it? What is the outcome that matters to them? What problem does this solve? And then I say it in plain English. No jargon, no caveats, just human, honest language. So, ultimately, if we want LERs to scale, we don't need better acronyms, we don't need longer definitions, or ecosystem diagrams. We need stories that move, not specs that sell. So together, let's commit to keeping the human at heart with more of our communications and lead with human-centered language, because I truly believe that LERs have the power to transform hiring, education, and opportunity for millions of people. But that transformation starts with a single, simple conversation that anyone can understand. So together, let's tell that story. Thank you so much.